Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, May 4th, and we have one item on the HHS Committee agenda this morning, which is reviewing the FY24 operating budget amendment to the youth harm reduction budget as recommended by the county executive. Just a quick housekeeping item. We are starting at 9 this morning because a number of my colleagues, including Councilmember Sales and I, are attending the historical dedication of the new Leggett building, which is an extraordinary project being facilitated by the Housing Opportunity Commission in downtown Silver Spring. And that ribbon cutting is a little bit later this morning. But we have some extraordinary leaders among us today, and I know I speak on behalf of the entire committee in expressing our appreciation to all of the folks here before us, but the staff that are on the front lines every day trying to provide additional programs and support and frankly love to our youth who desperately need it right now. Montgomery County has a long history and tradition of advancing innovative and extraordinarily supportive programs within the Positive Youth Development Cluster, dating back to over 25 years ago when the county initiated a gang prevention, intervention, and suppression model that became a national model across the country and was extraordinarily successful in helping to curb some of the challenges that we were seeing at that time. And because of the building of that infrastructure, the county was uniquely well positioned to weather the storm better than many communities, but we know that our youth are continuing to face tremendous challenges. So we are going to set a goal of trying to finish by around 10 o'clock this morning, which I know does not entirely do justice to this great work, but we will have another opportunity to speak about this when we get before full council. But with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Yao to walk us through the packet.
Good morning. The operating budget amendment for the Youth Harm Reduction Initiative is in the amount of $853,699. This is a continuation of programming, or it's intended to continue programming that the council had appropriated funding for in the fall, the same amount. The proposed funding is intended to support the same portfolio of work, and a description of that work is on page 2 and 3 of your packet. Council staff notes a couple of issues for the committee's consideration. A number of these, all of these projects or contracts have gone through procurement and are underway. The only one that's outstanding is the consulting services contract. Council staff understands that that has gone through the procurement process, and it's awaiting a non-competitive award approval by the council. However, there's a number of these programs that have not yet started. I think it took a while to go through the county's procurement process, and so they are kind of getting up and ready to deliver services. So the first issue that council staff wanted to check in with the executive is about the consulting contract and whether funds will be encumbered in fiscal year 23, and if so, will there need to be that funding of $180,000 in fiscal year 24 in this appropriation?
Thank you very much, Ms. Yao. So I'll turn it over to my colleagues in the executive branch, whoever wants to speak first at a high level and then respond to Ms. Yao's question in the packet.
I'll start with a high level. This all comes out of work that we did preceding last summer. As council members are aware, there was a spike in youth harm. We generalized it as youth harm, youth suicide, youth mental health issues, youth violence. And so we didn't want to usurp the positive youth development efforts that were already underway, so we created a specialized committee that focused on specifically addressing the concerns that were really emerging as we were coming out of the pandemic, focused very much on attempting to get resources directly to youth and prioritizing where we were seeing these upticks in youth-related harm issues. And so we got data from the police department to show us where we were seeing these upticks in violence. We got data from our Health and Human Services partner where we saw upticks in mental health or or substance use or conflict in our schools or in our communities, and we prioritize those communities. What you have before you is a continuation of the efforts that we took last summer, and I'm very proud to say that we saw a really positive impact from the work that we did last summer, and I'm sure that many of the Health and Human Services and Chief Jones could speak to what we saw. We saw a marked reduction in some of the particularly the conflict-related issues with youth. Now, obviously, we did see increases in opioid use coming into the fall, and so we have more work to do. But what it does underscore is that some of the mechanisms and methods that we did attempt to utilize did have a positive impact in several of the areas. Now, as Ms. Yao alluded to, some of the work needs to be started and needs to be moved forward, and we're working to have that in place for this summer to make sure that we've got a continuation and expansion of the efforts that we undertook. But obviously, we do have some initial positive impacts in particularly the youth violence sector of the youth harm space. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Treadvance, who can speak to the strategic plan initiative and where we are with regard to Ms. Yao's question.
Good morning. So the funds for the consultant will be encumbered in FY23. They were only included in the FY24 proposal because at the time we were concerned that due to procurement processes that are often very lengthy, that we would potentially lose those funds and we might need them in FY24. But we've found resolutions internally and we can confirm that the funds will be encumbered in FY23.
Thank you. It's not appropriate for this committee, but we should follow up on finding out what challenges were within the procurement process itself, which are out of the control of the folks in front of us, to see what can be done to expedite, particularly items like this, where we need to get the money out on the street as quickly as possible. We're not just talking about, ordering supplies here. We're talking about life-saving programs and supports for youth who are screaming for help in every way imaginable right now. So we will need to address that. We can follow up with our colleagues in the GO committee, but it would be helpful to do a deep dive on what happened and how we can avoid that in the future. I'd love to hear a little bit about what's happening right now, just in sort of, generally the sense that we're getting. And so, Mr. Cardona, I'd love to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what you and your team are seeing currently. And then Chief Jones, I know the partnership and alliance has been critical, and it's important that we have the strongest possible infrastructure in place going into the summer months when youth harm tends to be at a much higher rate than normally across the year for obvious reasons. Kids are out of school. But Mr. Cardona, what is the state of things right now?
So Luis Cardona, for the record, administrator for the Positive Youth Development Program. So from our perspective in our program, we continue to do our best to address a number of complex needs for young people in the county. We were very fortunate to have some strong interagency and community partnerships that has really helped us to inform our decisions, our policy, our funding, and our implementation of our programs. It should be noted that as we work to develop this process, one of the key components of it was the engagement of the community residents, specifically the communities that were disproportionately impacted by gun violence and other forms of violence. And we're very intentional about providing the space for them to express to us what they were feeling, what they were experiencing, what their needs were, how they needed us in the county to redirect our resources to best meet those needs. And we were able to successfully do it in the Montgomery Village community, Gettysburg, and Germantown, and we continue to move forward on doing the same thing. And across the board, what you heard from residents in those communities was the sense of lack of safety for themselves, for their children, and for their families, as well as the lack of access to services or programs that are going to keep their young people engaged, further complicated by the quality of life and the socioeconomic challenges that many of the families experience, in the sense that it became very complicated for many of the families to access what we do have. We're very fortunate here in Montgomery County to have an abundance of supports for young people, whether they're sports related, whether they're cultural arts related. And unfortunately, in the case of many of the communities that we serve, that we are seeing the disproportionality of violence, those families and those children and young people don't necessarily have that access. So a lot of work that we've been really focusing on is how do we bring that there. And the one good thing that I believe came out of this process, I'll give you an example, and I think Councilmember Sells will be really interested in this one as well, is that as a result of this Community Safety Roundtable that was held in Montgomery Village, Gettysburg, we held it at the Gettysburg Library, and kudos to the libraries for being a good partner with us. A number of residents talked about the fact that as the new redevelopment of Lake Forest Mall moves forward, there needed to be some kind of intention to make sure there's space for young people and families, whether it be a recreational side or just something built in there, because that community really needs it. And so what ended up happening, obviously, we in the county are limited in terms of what we can do, other than to do our best to support whatever the community wants to do. And so we helped support a collective of providers in that community, to include Action in Montgomery, Beloved Communities, the Safe Places Program, Club 480, Identity, even HOC, and all these partners that hadn't really not worked together before, to kind of now start mobilizing the community and their resources for advocacy around this. There's no assurances that that's going to happen, but at least it's good to see the communities now taking ownership of community safety, and that's what it is for us. At the end of the day, many of us don't live in these communities, but we do our best to provide resources and supports for the young people and the families. But the key thing for us in any successful modeling, what we learned from last summer, was that once the community takes ownership of community safety, it really changes the dynamic. But I'm really grateful to the support that we've been able to get through the county executive, as well as the council, to support the work we're doing, in particular the work that we're doing through the BUILD program. For those of you that may or may not be familiar, that is the entity that President Biden has been using as a part of his 16-city initiative to address violence in inner cities around the country. And so now, for the first time this past month, we were able to train a number of community providers and community members in that training that most often my staff goes through in the Street Outreach Network. And so we do believe that we're very hopeful that as we strengthen and support the growth of the community leadership, these issues or these risk factors will go down, but there's still a long ways to go. I do believe that probably one of the key issues is the disparities around access to sports programs, to the cultural arts. And we're very familiar. I mean, both of us have done a lot of work with Imagination Stage and the great work that they do. And being able to build off of that and expand it to other communities is going to be helpful as we move forward to come up with at least solution-based strategies to address the issues that we're seeing. I'm sorry, one last thing I wanted to mention, because I know Derry chimed in. Thanks to the leadership of Dr. Bridges, one of the things that we've also been doing in conjunction with Mark Hodges' leadership, so feel free to chime in, as a collective within HHS, we've been really strategizing on how we respond to the situation we're seeing with opioids and its impact on young people in general. I'll let Mark talk about that a little bit more, because I think it's really important for the community to hear this.
Mark Hodge, I'm the Senior Administrator for School Health Services. I've convened a group of leaders within HHS from all of our service areas. Everyone in HHS is doing something related to opioid prevention and harm reduction. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a consolidated message using the same sort of data, so everyone can work together as a department instead of in separate service areas. And so we've been meeting for the past 3 or 4 months. We are hopefully tomorrow going to finalize our message for the community. We will absolutely share that with the council and with the county executive's office. The message from DHS, HHS as a full department about all of the things that we are doing across the department to address this issue, not just with our youth, but also with adults and our older adults as well. aging and disability is also part of this committee. So we are working hard to make that happen. Our next step is to start identifying places where we can make improvements, places where we might be able to use some of the opioid restitution funds to improve our programming or to initiate new programming through that funding, so we can start to address the harm that is caused by opioids.
Thank you. That's very helpful. The coordinated effort is so critical. And I'll ask Chief Jones to go next. And I still remember vividly when Chief Jones and Chief Banger testified when the Recreation Department's budget and HHS's budget was going to be cut dramatically during the recession, and saying you might as well triple our budget because we're going to need it if you don't fund these programs. And so I know he in particular understands the importance of investment in our youth. So Chief Jones, any comments?
Good morning. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Albanaz and Councilmember Sales. You know, it's very interesting. I think last year when it was duly noted that I felt like there needed to be this call to action because of the elevation of youth violence that had been occurring in the county in the early part of last year. And I was very afraid that we were going to have a very tumultuous summer, you know, as it's not uncommon for when school is out and, you know, that the youth have more time on their hands, that we have more acts of violence during that time of the year. And I'm pleased to report that, and it's noted in, I think, in the staff's report, that that was not the case. And I think it's a credit to many of the people that are at the table and the folks that work in their shops of the commitment to this county that did not happen, that we did not have that tumultuous summer that I feared. I think because there were lots of programs, there were things of intention, as Mr. Cardona noted, when we looked at what was happening in Germantown as an example, on Crystal Rock Drive. We had some unfortunate homicides in that particular area. I think the community clearly was on edge, and there was a commitment to go into that community and work with that community in order to create some safety and really have those conversations and develop some programs along the way. And I think continuously it still shows that there is a need for us to continuously do this. Why? Because we still have an issue with young people having access to firearms in our community. We are still seeing, unfortunately, individuals who are 17 years and younger who are in possession of illegal firearms. We're also seeing that, again, that number, as noted in the packet, when we really talk about young people, we're talking about, you know, that age of 21, 18 to 21 as well. And that's still, again, you know, as we generally will see in law enforcement, we will see a lot of that activity. Unfortunately, young people who will get involved in some of these events at an early age. And you know, again, it is an important time to figure out ways to redirect them and get them on a positive path. And again, looking across the county, and it's not only just with the guns themselves, but we're also still seeing a major issue with carjackings. And it, again, you know, if I was to say that these are all of our kids, when I say our kids, just Montgomery County themselves, then the answer is no, because it is really a regional problem. I think it also gives us some pause to think about this from a regional perspective of how do we enhance these programs, that because there's really no boundaries that these individuals will not go to, whether they are from Montgomery County going into the District of Columbia as an example, or vice versa. And I've seen, unfortunately, in the last few months, young men as young as the age of 13, 14, and 15 be involved in a carjacking, a violent carjacking. And that speaks volumes to what we're discussing here today, and really to make sure that these programs, we're redirecting some of these young folks and giving them something more positive to do, and then help them again to, however we find the sort of root cause of why they get involved in these matters. And I think there's a variety of things that we're starting to determine. But I think we have the ability to help to really provide some guidance. And I'll give one positive example from our perspective. As you all may be aware, the White Oak community is one of in our police reporting area is one of our highest crime areas in the county. And last summer, we actually put on a basketball league on, every Friday night, that was highly attended by many of the youth and was well attended not only by the youth themselves, but by their parents as well. And I will tell you that we saw a dip in crime in the area, in the activity that we normally, calls for service that we normally, didn't see in the years past. So I believe these things do work. And as you noted, when I said that, when you cut Department of Recreation and programs, we're going to pay for it one way or the other. And I'd rather pay for it, and get positive results, such as what we did there, versus doing it in a way that's going to be very negative to impact our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Jones. Ms. Trent-Vance.
I just wanted to highlight one more thing, that while the supplemental is strictly talking about funding for some initiatives, expanding some programs and some that are new, by no means is that a full picture of the collection of youth harm and prevention efforts that are happening across the county. The executive team has been convening with Earl Stoddard and Sonia. They've been convening providers, government, recreation, everyone, really cataloging every single one of our efforts. And I just really wanted to highlight that we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't see the success that we saw last year if it wasn't for those other efforts, which is why we had such a successful year. So I really wanted to highlight the amazing work that is happening, that it's just not necessarily captured here from a budgetary perspective.
I'm glad you said that. I recall about almost exactly 2 years ago, it was Luis and his team that convened a youth summit of youth providing organizations. I had the opportunity to make a few comments at the beginning of that session. Many of the conversations led to the recommendations that we've seen here before us. So, and I want to thank Councilmember Lukey for joining us. I know she had a doctor's appointment this morning. I'll just briefly update you, Councilmember Lukey. We've gotten an update on the initiative. The good news is all of the components have been stood up. All of us would have preferred that the procurement process had been more quick than it was. And so one of the follow-ups from this item is we're going to work with our colleagues in GEO to find out what happened and ensure it doesn't happen again in the future.
Thank you.
So any other comments from anybody else from the panel? Ms. Mora.
Yes, thank you, Sonia Mora, Assistant Chief Operating Officer. I wanted to add a little bit about what Ms. Trent-Vance was talking about in terms of doing a more comprehensive approach. So we had back in the fall began to talk to the departments that had been participating in this initiative to collect information about the activities that they did during the summertime. So we have, as Ms. Trent-Vance was talking about, a whole spectrum of activities, very detailed, the type of activity that it was, whether it was a one-time, whether it was a community engagement, positive youth development, and the results of those interventions. So that's one piece that we are saving so that when the consultant comes in, they can start looking at what has been done. The other part that we did is maybe a month or two ago, we resent the same Excel spreadsheet with all this information to understand what people are planning to do during the summer. So we didn't want to wait until June or May to begin for these agencies to start thinking about what activities they're having. So we're comprising that catalog as well. We're convening the group. I think we're having a meeting next week again with all the group talking about what worked, what were the challenges that people had. And again, we will be utilizing this information to understand the types of interventions that have been done, where they have been occurred, because we have been very diligent about targeting those areas where we think there is a higher need. And at the same time, as we bring in this consultant to help us craft a plan, the idea is also to identify what are going to be some of the core measures, constructs that we're going to be measuring to see if we're being successful, so that we can keep track of this through time. We can't just be thinking about one summer at a time. What we're thinking is, how do we bring this into the future so that this is an evolving programming? There may be some issues of capacity, there may be some issues of resources. You know, we're going to identify those during this planning piece, but I don't want people to think that we have been waiting for the consultant to start doing some of those data collections. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to sit and analyze, because it's quite an inventory of programming that has been occurring.
Thank you, but we're heading in the right direction. That's the good news, and we haven't let administration prevent us from getting the programs on the ground, which is the most important part right now. Dr. Stoddard?
Yeah, one last point. We did receive a question from Councilmember Lukey's office about the eligibility of the BUILD program for Medicare reimbursement. This was a law that was passed in 2022.
Medicaid.
Medicaid, sorry.
Yes, sorry.
My apologies. And we are investigating that actively now. So there are some criteria that have to be established for the program, and we're actively assessing, and we'll obviously work to try and get the program eligible if permissible. We have to do a little bit more legislative review, but we agree with expanding the amount of resources we have in the space beyond local county dollars. So obviously we will pursue that as a forward funding mechanism, and we'll report back to the council on how that proceeds or not.
Sorry, apologies. Earl, could we just briefly explain for the community that's watching what exactly?
Yeah, so I guess do you want to if you want to explain,
or do you want me? I mean, do you want me to explain the state law?
Yes,
I'm happy to pitch in. So during the 2022 legislative session, House Bill 1005, sponsored by Delegate Smith out of Baltimore City, was focused on a model that would allow coming at violence prevention from a public health perspective, which is of course an ideal way to approach it. And including retaliatory violence, making sure that they were integrating programming that would assist with after an incident of violence, preventing violence from recurring or additional escalation within a community. And it set criteria by which individuals would need to be trained and certified in violence prevention, and then that it would subsequently allow to be reimbursable under Medicaid, under the state's medical assistance program. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, and wanting to make sure that whatever we're doing here is evidence-based, trauma-informed, follows all the criteria that's laid out in that statute as being model violence prevention programming, integrated with the other things we're doing, like recreation and our educational after-school programming, like all the beyond the bell type things we do, but then have a way to integrate that and not leave other funding on the table.
If I can just chime in, just in the context of the BUILD program, it should be noted that that program in of itself is the go-to entity that President Biden has been using as part of his 16-city initiative to address the issues of gun and youth violence in these cities around the country. So we've been working with BUILD since 2010. So it's been now 13 years where we've trained Street Outreach Network staff. But as I mentioned earlier, for our first time, we actually included community providers. They're part of this effort. They're part of the youth harm effort. And soon our community members to go through the same training as well.
Yes, and I think it was due by January 1st, 2023 that the state had to publish what would meet that criteria, so that the training programs are again level setting a certain expectation for certification in this work.
I'm having a very positive flashback here. So I remember when the Collaboration Council worked on expanding the Advancing Youth Development Training, which all of the Excel Beyond the Bell providers were required to go through in order to be contractors. and by extension, the Street Outreach Network and Luis's team. So I think that I had heard about that, but until you just described it, I didn't fully connect the dot. That's exciting because we have that here, which is really great.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to attack a complicated problem and make sure that everyone working on it is on the same page and the same sheet of music. I know you all did discuss metrics earlier or touched upon it, but one of the things that I wanted to ask about is, particularly in some of the programming, like, for example, the 480 Club, which does amazing work. What metric is used to determine whether participation in the program gets them back to academic eligibility, or if for sports within the school, or if it wasn't an academic eligibility issue that had them removed from participation in MCPS sports, if it was a social suspension related to disciplinary issues? How do we determine whether that affected the outcome positively?
So this is a pilot program that we're doing, and I'm glad you bring up the eligibility issue, because we did notice, and I just want to acknowledge Michelle Lessie and Chief Jones' office, because she provided us with a lot of good data to help inform a lot of the work. And one of the things that we found out is that a number of the young people who were either involved in committing acts of gun violence or victims had at some point participated in school or community youth sports. And again, going back to the issue I brought up earlier, the lack of access for the family made it really difficult for them to maintain their child involved in those programs. But then the risk factors started adding up. In particular, it had an impact on eligibility, which was the 2.0 minimum GPA requirement. So as far as I do know from Club 480's program, it's intended on providing that kind of mentoring and support for them to improve in the area academically. It's tapping into other resources as well, depending on which community it is, whether it's a community that has a wellness center and other PYD programs. But the intent is for these young people, just like what we do with the recreation program, Soccer for Change, to really help build the protective factors for young people to engage in their school sports. And academic sports it's one of them. We just started the implementation, so we probably won't have that information of that impact until probably the end of the summer, but we'll be happy to provide that information once it's ready.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to elaborate. The primary aim of the pilot is to address a structurally violent practice that doesn't serve adolescents, right? And we totally understand that the school system has to do what it has to do. But what tends to happen if a child undergoes discipline with the school system, it strips them away of the things that anchor them. Sports being one of them, to Luis's point. So what this program intended to do, the focus was mainly on the child and not the school system, so that we could give them back that anchor, but give it back to them with a community, give it back to them with peer support and mentorship. And then it's also very appealing because the peers actually get a stipend and they get paid, and it's students. So it's one pilot, it's hitting so many different things in one, which is why we really appreciated it, and we really appreciated the partnership with Club 480, because in order for us to be successful over this long term, it requires us to be innovative and do different approaches in how we engage our youth and focus more on them over systems.
Thank you. And I did want to thank the County Executive's Office and Chief Jones, your department, for assistance with Cider Mill. After we went out and met with the community, there had been a number of youth involved or young adult involved car break-ins in the area, and the community wanted extra help, and you made sure we got a camera out there that they desperately wanted, and the residents are very happy about that and happy with the partnership that we can continue helping to find positive ways to engage the youth in that vicinity in order to make sure that they are feeling part of the community and engaged in positive ways. And thank you for having the basketball program again this summer in the East County, or not summer, it already started last weekend. You know, I think that's a great opportunity for kids to not just play and engage in recreation, but also meet other members of the community, have their families meet other members of the community, and develop stronger attachment to say, this is my community and I belong here and there are things here for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to each and every one of you, because tackling the youth to prevent any further violence or disruption in what should otherwise be a positive journey in our county to a fulfilling career, continuing their education, is impacted, as you mentioned, as we've heard, by gun violence. And so investing in programs that are going to reduce harm, protect our students, are programs that we need to invest in. We talk about carjackings, we talk about our youth not having enough to do in the summer. And so I'm really excited to see that, you know, you're coming back and the executive is ensuring that, you know, these initiatives are funded. We know that positive outcomes happen when we expose our students to the resources that exist. And so I'm not sure about not just the resources that will bring job preparedness and experience. I'm glad that most of these programs speak to that component and the importance, but just being in community with other students and with trusted leaders in our community. You know, suicide rates among children and teens by guns have risen to 66% over the last decade. Our black children are 17 times more likely to die by a gun than white kids. And 62% of children and teen gun deaths are homicides, and about half of that is suicides. So the programs that we're discussing to reduce youth violence, I know that we are on a tight budget, but programs like these ensure that our students have the highest likelihood to succeed, and that's what we want to tout here in Montgomery County. And so before, you know, the school year ends, I'm glad that we are already thinking about how to invest in our students who don't have the funds to pay for those summer camps or the summer programs that are going to keep them busy and out of trouble this entire summer. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the metrics that result, because we have to expand it to more students. I see that some of these programs are only you know, supporting 10 students. I know that, you know, just in Montgomery Village alone, in Cider Mill, 10 students is not even scratching the surface. Our kids are in desperate need of support, and when we invest in them, it only ensures they have better outcomes when they go back to school in the fall. They don't have learning loss, and they are better connected to the programs that they can get into. So the mentoring, the job preparedness. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can continue to build and work with the businesses here, even county government, to take on some of these jobs and internship programs. To this day, if I meet someone who grew up in the District of Columbia, they talk about the impact that the Marion Barry Summer Jobs Program, regardless of what character flaws he had, those students, generations of them, were taken out of poverty and were put on a track to have long-term job success. And so I'm hoping that we have plans about expansion and how we're going to accommodate more students in these programs for years to come, because we're seeing the results, and I just want more of our kids to experience that wouldn't otherwise have it. So thank you all for your leadership and for your mentorship and prioritizing our kids in this budget. So that's all I have.
Thank you. So I concur with the staff recommendation for a high priority to move this forward. it's going to be tough with everything else we got to work through, but obviously this is a critical component, I guess. Without objection, colleagues? Without objection.
Just want to check, again, because of the consulting amount, which is $180,000 that's being encumbered in fiscal year 23,
Right.
it's not, it's essentially one-time funding. It's not ongoing programming. So does the committee want to recommend the whole amount of $853,000, or are they interested in reducing that by $180,000, which would end up being $673,699?
Sorry, it was my understanding there was going to be an offset based on the fact that the procurement was able to get done, and that other 180 was already encumbered in FY23 funds. So I would move to approve the putting on the high priority list the amount reduced by the 180 to the $673,000. $699.
Okay. Councilmember Sales?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recommend the full amount. You know, some of these are new programs, some of these are ongoing programs, and so I'm hoping that by, procuring these consulting services, we'll have a better picture of how we can build upon what works, sunset what doesn't, and continue to grow what is working. And we can't depend on the nonprofits who are delivering the services to also analyze and evaluate their effectiveness. And so if this consultant is going to give a cohesive understanding and picture of these harm reduction interventions, I think that's what we're going to need when we are deliberating the budget post-summer for next year, for fiscal year 25. And so that's what I'm expecting to see, what the new picture is and how we're going to fund the programs that do work next year and grow them. And so hopefully that will be part of the scope in this consulting service agreement.
Thank you. So just a clarification. So the money was encumbered for the consulting for this year. But I agree with Councilmember Sales's point about the importance of ensuring that that work expand and continue. Is it the HHS's recommendation that it's necessary for the full amount for that to be continued as part of the contract? Or if somebody could clarify that, that would be helpful.
My understanding is that the department will encumber and issue the PO, purchase order. I'm sorry, Deborah Lambert from Office of Management and Budget. My understanding is that the department will encumber the funds this year. So the funding for an additional $180,000 for a consultant is not necessarily needed for fiscal year 24. However, the department could repurpose those funds and use them to expand the program as an option.
Thank you. I will just, yes, to what Deborah said, we will encumber the funds once we get approval of the consultant on the non-competitive. We might potentially, depending on the findings of the consultant, there might potentially be a need for implementation and infrastructure building. So I don't know if we want to reserve those funds there for that, or if we just strictly, I think we just have a plethora of options at this point. We can either just not give the funds in FY 180 in FY24, or we do it and then continue to use those dollars to assist with implementation or support other programming that are part of this initiative as well. To your point, Councilmember Sales, so that we could continue to scale or add in additional initiatives. It won't go, if it is available in FY24, it will not go to waste. We will most definitely utilize those dollars. But in terms of encumbrance, we will encumber 180 in FY23. That is the intention.
So I have a suggestion, just to connect a couple of dots, because I agree with Councilmember Sales's point. I appreciate Councilmember Lukey's asking for clarification. So bottom line, let me just summarize for the millions watching at home. We've got $180,000, which will help track the outcome measurements of the initiative, which has been encumbered in FY23, and we are moving forward with that particular consultant. Yes, Mr. Evans.
I just want to clarify, the scope of the consultant, this will be a portion of it, but the scope is the consultant will help us convene as a county, all providers, government, to create a cohesive county-wide strategy and framework on how we approach violence prevention for this particular population and beyond. Because if we know youth are not the generators and the creators of violence on their own, there's a lot of other root causes, so it'll be a more cohesive, comprehensive approach.
That's super helpful, but we've encumbered the money, so that work is going to start in this fiscal year. The question mark is, as a result of that work, will more resources be needed? And we don't yet know what or how. So I think given that and given the tight budgets that we've got, what I would propose, if you're amenable, council member Sales, is that we place the 180 on priority, and then the other 6 and change to high priority, to keep the conversation going for deliberation when we get to full council. And maybe even by then, the picture will be slightly more clear as to whether or not it will be necessary.
I concur.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
And we can also request that the department come back after
Right.
the strategic planning is over so that the council can hear what is being recommended and what kind of resource picture is provided at that point in time.
Got it. So, Ms. Yao, did you get that, what I just said? Okay, great. All right.
The 673 is a high priority.
Correct. Correct. All right. Thank you very much, colleagues. I very much appreciate everyone's work. For those of you that are attending the Leggett inauguration, I will see you there. So thank you all very much. And with that, our committee session this morning is adjourned.